to Motivation Insiders webcast. This is where we explore best practices for designing, implementing, and measuring incentive, recognition, and loyalty programs. My name is Alex Rogo, and I'm the Engagement Practice Leader at Virtual Incentives. I'm also a current member of the Incentive Marketing Association and on the board for the Incentive and Engagement Solution Providers Strategic Industry Group of the IMA. As you've come to know, Motivation Insiders is an ongoing series designed and produced by the IESP. It's for IMA members, and it's also for our corporate practitioners out there looking for new ideas, perspectives, and best practices in motivation. This episode, the business value of creating great memories, is enlightening, it's thought-provoking, and it's entertaining. And most importantly, will help you develop your strategic thinking about individual and group travel awards for sales incentives and employee engagement programs. We hope you enjoy this and continue to listen to Motivation Insiders.
Hi, and welcome to Motivation Insiders podcast. I'm your host, Pam Polino. I'm the Senior Director of Rewards at 110 and member of the Incentive Marketing Association, as well as a board member of the IESP. In this episode, we'll focus on travel in the incentive and recognition industry, and we're going to discuss the business value of creating great memories. I'm really excited about our guests today. We have two travel experts in the house. Our guests today are Todd Tomlin and Pali Chhabra. Todd is the CEO and founder of Memory Journeys and the president of ITC, the Incentive Travel Council. Pali Chhabra is the director of incentives at Brightspot, and he's also a member of the IESP. So to get started, Todd, I'll start with you. Can you first tell us a little bit about the ITC, its mission, and just a little bit about your background of how you got to where you are in the industry?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So as you mentioned, Pam, I'm the president of the Incentive Travel Council, which is a special interest group of the Incentive Marketing Association. And at the ITC, we're dedicated to helping organizations better understand how they can improve business performance through reward and recognition travel. But we do have a specific focus on individual incentive travel. And so I'm really excited and looking forward to this conversation because I know that Pali focuses a lot more on group. And then we at the Incentive Travel Council, as well as my company, we focus more on individual incentive travel. So happy to get into that in a bit. In terms of like how I've gotten to where I am, I've been in individual incentive travel for almost 15 years. I ran the Hyatt gift card program for many years. I started the Hotels.com gift card program and ran many other different hospitality brands. And then about 2 years ago, I started my own Ultralux incentive travel company, providing the very best in private islands, homes, villas, yachts, safaris, space travel, all for individual incentives. So yeah, happy to share more about that during our chat.
Ooh, wow, I'm intrigued. You had me at space travel.
Yeah.
And Lux. That sounds really fun. That's great. Thank you. Pali, can you tell me a little bit about your company, Brightspot, and who does Brightspot cater to? And maybe what is the sweet spot for Brightspot in terms of your clientele?
Yeah, I'd say we're probably best known for our incentive travel programs, President's Club trips, more exotic destination group travel. But I'd say our overall travel mix is probably 50-50 split of incentive travel and then large corporate conferences. The other side of our business is also non-travel sales incentive programs. So really like your points-based programs, engagement events, and then spiffs too. So we kind of cover the incentive industry soup to nuts as a full service agency.
Okay, great. So we'll kind of get both sides of the coin on the travel industry, which will be nice to get both perspectives. And I know, Pali, you have kind of a really interesting background, if you wouldn't mind sharing. I think when we talked before, I might have called it like a Heinz 57. You had a really cool collective, which I think always makes for a really interesting, fun career, especially in our business. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll give you the little bit of an abridged version. So for the sake of time, I know we can go into a whole episode itself on my whole upbringing. Essentially a group in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I've always been a huge sports fan, playing hockey my whole life, and I knew that growing up I wanted to be somewhere in sports and events. Like those are always two things that I've always been gravitating to. Our family moved to Orlando, Florida when I was young, and so finished my school in Florida, and then landed a job with NBC Sports in Chicago. So I went from Canada to Florida to Chicago, and I was working in their live events department for live television sporting events. And doing that over the course of 5 years, I just gained a knack for like event marketing, event promotions, and just really like the on-site event experience for patrons and for guests. And so from there, I ventured into more of a grassroots style marketing events on the agency side. So started producing our own grassroots and marketing campaigns, guerrilla style events at a smaller scale. And from there, joined Brightspot as a program manager, and now about 11 years later, director of incentives at Brightspot. So it's been a fun, interesting journey for sure.
That's amazing. It's really interesting. I love the differences of both of your backgrounds. So thank you for sharing that, Pali. So I want to share, I love travel. I'm really excited for this episode, and I want to share a great quote about travel. Of all the books in the world, the best stories are found between the pages of a passport. So travel is one of my favorite topics. And for me, I think there's nothing better than sharing travel and new experiences with someone else. I just think that is where the sweet spot is of life, personally. So Todd, this episode is about the business value of making and creating memories. So I'll start with you. What's an example of a travel experience that you've seen that truly created that lasting memory? And why do you think it worked so well?
Sure. So, one that comes to mind, it was a small group that we did. So I said we primarily do individual incentive travel, but we had a small group of associates that came together and went on a retreat in Central Portugal. So we had 8 different attendees, and they had a 10-acre palace that they stayed in for 5 nights. And it was such a rewarding experience to see them come together as individuals, but we had essentially like a relationship influencer that allowed the group to come together each night and find ways to get them to break down their barriers of communicating with one another, and essentially finding ways to be more insightful both within themselves and amongst each other in like interrelational conversations and things like this. And what that ultimately did, it wasn't just the travel to Portugal and the experience of the different sights and sounds and meals and everything that they were having, but it was like creating a way to connect with oneself, but also others, and then allowing them to go back, to their jobs within a week's time. And the feedback that we got of like how they then began to work so much closer together and listen to each other, and also be able to speak up for what they believe, because they now felt that they had created this safe space amongst each other. And I mean, how to measure that ROI, I don't know, but I think it's a really great example of how travel, and when you remove people from their day to day and put them in environments that are uncomfortable but also safe, and allowing them to create memories together, it really is invaluable.
Wow, that's an incredible story. I was in Portugal at the end of last year, so I know how special that place is as a travel venue. That's amazing. What would you say? Is there kind of a tipping point where what separates a good event from an unforgettable event, Todd? What do you think about that?
Oh, goodness. I would just say surprising and delighting. It can be programmed in. You can absolutely have moments where, as the travel planner, that you're anticipating will be the surprise and delight, but you really do need to have those built in. And if you can make them personal, it doesn't have to be a one size fits all, but if there's a way to know something about the individual travelers, and if you can surprise them at scale, great. But if you can do it on an individual basis, that's even.
Okay. All right. We will keep that in mind. Polly, just to piggyback on that, are there any specific design principles that you use at Brightspot to really intentionally create these types of memorable moments? Is there a secret framework for it, or anything that you use?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a secret framework, but it's just really getting. It really boils down to understanding your audience. Knowing the attendees really helps ensure what we're creating. They're at the right moments for the right people. Once we know who the audience are, we know who's coming in. We get a good gauge for that. We're always looking to bring really the destination to life. That could be through local culture, educational elements, something that Todd mentioned, like making it as personal as possible. That's really what creates those lasting, memorable moments. I think also we're really big on creativity on our side, so leveraging our creative design process and communications, like some communications before the event, like building some hype and anticipation, and then once we're on site at the events, reinforcing or finding ways to really reinforce that through the life of the event itself helps ingrain that and really bring those memorable moments to light and have that lasting impression. Um, to Todd's point, personalization is huge right now, and so I'd say the two things there are trying to make it as personal as possible for people, but also trying to create something that's exclusive for this group that maybe you could go to Portugal on your own, but with our group you're going to get something exclusive that you couldn't do on your own. So working with our partners locally and seeing what we can do from a specialization standpoint, so they not only feel recognized by being there, but at the same time they're going to experience something that nobody else can, and that's what really creates that memory for them.
Okay, thank you. Would you say when you use your framework, how much of that is changed on the fly that sort of becomes organic once you get there? Do you stick to the script, or are there those moments where there's some organic aspects of that?
Yeah, it's definitely a combination of both. I think you definitely have to have a framework in place. You can't just wing it on an incentive program. But having the flexibility to be creative is all part of the process as well. So really, it's aligning with our clients on what their objectives are, what their priorities are, and then finding ways organically to bring some authenticity to the specific destination where we're at. I'm not sure if either of you've ever read or know the book Unreasonable Hospitality or watched The Bear, but we're huge proponents of dream weaving and doing what we can to bring something special and sort of unpredictable and spontaneous at events too. So that's when we get to partner with DMCs or our hotel partners and really kind of do something truly memorable and unforgettable, but keep that authentic, local perspective in place as well.
That's great. I have read the book Unreasonable Hospitality. I love it. Read it twice. I recently read it again. I have not seen The Bear, so I'll add that one to my list.
Yeah.
Um, that's great. Well, I think a little bit, I feel like there has been a shift to experience led value in the last few years. I think, especially post pandemic, there just was kind of this roaring desire for travel, I feel like, which is so exciting for both of you for your business. And I know 110 has a whole travel division as well. So we've been seeing that. Todd, would you say that the traveler expectations have changed in the last 3 to 5 years in a noticeable way for you?
Um, I would say they have, and really quickly before I fully answer that, I just want to acknowledge that site. So this is more of the group travel side of the incentive travel industry, but there's the Society for Incentive Travel Excellence, and they came out with a major study that they co-authored with Merits, came out a month or two ago, and I mean the top number one motivation of these survey participants was travel. It was above in terms of what's motivating them. So it was above gift cards, merchandise, cash. Travel was the number one motivator. So that's just echoing kind of what we're seeing and the growth in the industry. But changes over the past 3 to 5 years, I think it really is moving. You have to look at the different demographics. If you look at more millennial and even baby boomers, where they're still being motivated. They want something unique. They want something that they haven't experienced before. They don't necessarily want the big hotels on the beach any longer. They want to find, that they want a hotel that has 10 to 20 rooms and feels very bespoke and curated and well taken care of, private. exclusive, as Pali said. These are kind of travel is really moving less so mass market and more towards feeling like something is really special. But on the flip side of things, I mean, the younger generation still love them. I think all inclusive was like their number one motivator. So, I mean, that goes to show, like, I mean, I grew up in my 20s in all inclusives. I loved them. and now I prefer a more curated, individual experience. But I think it's also a matter of understanding that we all, as we age, we have different rites of passage within what we like to experience. And just because you have program participants at a certain age group now doesn't mean that they won't want to graduate to a different experience as they age within the workforce. So I think, the biggest thing that should be focused on now is, taking a look at your generations within your workforce and ensuring that what you're providing from them from a travel programming perspective is matching their demographic and their age group. And it is not a one size fits all.
Interesting. So definitely a win for some of the smaller boutique hotels, for some of those populations where they're really seeking those out more than ever. It sounds like interesting. I do love a great boutique hotel. There's nothing like it. One of a kind. So, Polly, is there anything you wanted to add to that in terms of your thoughts on how traveler expectations have changed in the recent years?
Yeah, just, I mean, echoing what Todd mentioned, I'd say the only one that we've seen, that there's been some studies done by the Incentive Research Foundation is coming out of COVID. There was such a big focus on like putting your wellness first and sort of self-care, and seeing that translate to the travel side. It's really the ability to have flexible time on your own and not have your entire incentive trip scheduled to the minute. We've seen more and more with our company as well. People want flex time or free time built in so they can just kind of go out and do what they want to do, whether it be like sleeping by the pool, going doing an excursion. Just that power of choice to just make it their own and do what they want is what we've seen again and again over the past few years. It's just one of those things that's just trending upwards as far as giving people the freedom and the flexibility to really choose their incentive trip, really.
Interesting. Thank you. I want to dive in a little bit now to giveaways. People have differing opinions about these. So when it comes to giveaways for incentive travel events, Polly, I'll go back to you. Do you always include some type of giveaway with any event? And are there any unique items that you really like to include to add value, just to kind of round out that overall experience?
Yeah, I think it's always good to have tangible items to go along with your trip. Ultimately, it comes down to budget, if we can include it or not. But when we do, really how we like to approach is a three-prong approach, if you will. But we like to do something pre-event, during the event, and then post-event. So it's three main touch points throughout your incentive trip. So examples of this could be, depending on where you're going, when we mail out someone's itinerary in their registration packet, we'll put in some custom-made luggage tags, maybe from leathers that are sourced locally, or crafted and handmade by someone locally to the destination that we're going to have like the first touch point, like, all right, like this is really cool, authentic, and you can't just buy this in a store. Then depending on where you're at or what you're doing on site, we've done a lot of sort of event gifting, fittings of sunglasses, hats, boots, lots of local things, but also, some more crowd pleasers that they can and then get something that's just for them. They've customized it and they can take it back with them. And then finally, I think the one thing, at least for every trip that we do, is some sort of professional photo with the group, so they have that as their memory. And then try to do something with the frame, like maybe there's some sand etched into the frame that's from the beach that they were at, or something along those lines. That's a good keepsake to take back with them, and something that they can actually look at proudly and say, like the memory of the trip is there with me now. I think the key for us is really when we're sourcing and looking at things, it's something memorable, something that's hopefully can be useful, and also when we're leaving the event, something that can actually fit in their suitcase and take home, like nothing too big that just becomes more of a headache than something they remember taking back with them.
Those are some good ideas. Those are some great giveaways. Todd, is there anything you want to add to that in terms of giveaways? Is that a part of your You do more of the luxury personalized events. So do you get involved with any sort of giveaways at all?
We do. I mean, it's going to depend on. We do. So just as an aside, like we do sit on the higher end of spend for our events. So typically 10, 15,000 US dollars minimum per program participant. So with that, we do look at much more personalized, bespoke. We've had programs where we are on the trip and we're monitoring what is of interest to each individual participant. And then we buy something, like maybe they really liked a piece of art, or they were just taken away with some type of local craftsman, and we'll purchase that on their behalf and then send it to them after the trip. And we found that that's really been a great way to show how much the company cared about the experience that they went on. One thing that I will say, and I didn't hear Pali mention it either, is branded giveaways. And I mean, I just want to say, save your money. Like, it's so hard. And I know that there's promotional products within our membership, I would love to hear from them as to the business value of doing so. But individuals want something that's useful. They want something that's meaningful. They want something that will remind them of the fond memories that they had within that experience. And unfortunately, branded merchandise, meaning the company's brand, or giveaways, is unfortunately, it just doesn't resonate, and it doesn't create an emotional connection. And it can actually deter and create a negative experience with program participants. So as much as the marketing team or whomever is like, yeah, we want to give everybody, X item with our brand on it, just redirect that money in a different way, I would suggest.
That's interesting. I read a study last year that after someone has been with the company 6 months, that there's a strong downslope in if they had a choice of a branded or a non-branded company item. They get really excited when they join the company, and then after they've been with the company about 6 months, I think then they kind of move on to some other new shiny things that they might want to give it the choice. So that's really interesting perspective. So you both put a lot of energy and time into, it sounds like, making it personal. It's not really cookie cutter for either one of you, even though you have two very different types of incentive travel businesses. But I want to talk a little bit about the business impact. I'm sure you get those questions from people that maybe have not done incentive travel before, or they're looking to step it up to a next level maybe. So I want to shift from the emotional aspects of travel to really the ROI of an event, which is always hard to measure, right? We know that. So I'll start with you, Pali. Definitely when you are on site and you've planned and executed on an amazing event, from the vibes, you can tell by the smiles and the laughing, and then of course getting awesome feedback along the way from those managers, those people that are also on site. But aside from that, how do great memories translate then into an ROI for your clients?
To your point, ROI is just it's hard to tie back to a single event or experience or anything like that. But what we like to focus on with our clients is ROO, which is return on objective. I think it just lends itself as a better measuring tool. And so things like looking at for someone coming to an incentive or winning the incentive trip, besides just driving sales, is how many qualified leads did they get using this program as a motivator? How many strategic meetings or new relationships? What's the brand or customer loyalty, or even on the channel side, something like how much mind share have you gained with partners versus what you had beforehand, and then defining what those objectives are, and then seeing how this your travel incentive programs measures up to that is a much better way to approach it versus just strictly like dollars and cents of ROI. So that's something that we always work with our clients closely on. It's obviously there's a budget and we have to make sure that things line up, but above and beyond that, like what are some other things from an objective standpoint that is really that this event is really driving for your business.
Instead of return on investment, return on objective. I might borrow that. I really like that. That's a really good thought. I like the way you framed that. Todd, what's your point of view on this? Does ROI speak for itself with repeat performance and clients that keep coming back for more and say, Todd, we need another one of those great trips? Or how important is proving the ROI in the events that you create for your clientele?
Yeah, I mean, I do like the ROO. I think, some of those objectives as well could be retention, engagement, trips. And, I think that's really where we drive the most home is, have you been able to retain that customer? What is the growth of their engagement with your company, either from a workforce, workload or output standpoint, or sales when looking at more of a client-based program. But yeah, it really can run the gamut. And yeah, I like ROO as well.
That's good. You might want to trademark that,
Yeah,
Polly.
I stole that from our owner, so we'll talk to Mike May afterward.
Okay, that's definitely a good one. Um, okay, great. Those are some great things to think about. I know that's ROI is always, no matter what area of incentive and recognition you work in the industry, ROI is always a tough target and a tough conversation sometimes to really explain the value. But many do understand the value on its own. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about the social impact of the incentive travel. So really, we're really hitting home with kind of the theme of the podcast, which is the value of creating great memories, of the business value in that. And I think the social piece of it is so big for that. So, Polly, what role does social connection really play in the success of a group travel program? And do you ever intentionally create any icebreaker moments? I know Todd had highlighted in earlier some of the things that they've done on site when he talked about the Portugal trip. Are there any intentionally created icebreaker moments to really get that social connection and break down those barriers?
Yeah, I think with group travel and group incentives, there's naturally icebreakers built into what we have structured and scheduled for the trip itself. So there'd be hosted meals, group activities, outings, things like that. There's an inherent social activity that's going to come from there. I think what we try and focus on, and depending on the group and who's all in attendance, is finding time that they can spend with leadership who's on the group as well. That's what we see as one of the biggest pieces of feedback we get, as far as a positive feedback, is that time with leadership that they never would have gotten otherwise, and just getting to pick someone's brain for 15, 20 minutes, get new insights, and just make a personal connection with someone who it as at a distance, or it's a different partner or something like that. So that's what we try and focus on, is making sure that leadership has a direct connection with everybody that's at the trip, and can help resonate the importance of what they've done and the magnitude of what they've done to achieve getting to be on the incentive trip. From there, we've seen more recently, working with different mobile apps, there's ways that we can incorporate that through mobile apps as well. So whether it be like a social wall where you can post pictures and tag people and then kind of get your social interaction that way. There's also the gamification built into some apps too, that you can do, like check off a bingo card or things like that helps promote social activity outside of what's been structured for you as well.
Okay, that's interesting. I hadn't heard of that. Todd, anything you want to add to that on the social impact of incentive travel?
I would like to. I'm going to come at it from an individual incentive perspective. So, and I haven't really kind of covered off or defined what that is. So, individual incentive travel is where companies are rewarding their employees, channel partners, customers, et cetera, with travel that is rewarded on an individual level, meaning that it might be rewarded to a group of 20 people, but they all are receiving a entitlement to a trip that they all get to then go on by themselves. And
Okay.
they're not going with a group, and it's not all at the same time. So examples of this would be everybody might receive a $5,000 Atlantis Bahamas gift card, and then it's up to them as to how they want to spend it. But it is, it has to be spent there, which means they're definitely going to the resort to enjoy the islands. There's also like cruise certificates. So a lot of the major cruise lines issue certificates that are good for a week-long cruise or a 4-night cruise, et cetera. And so companies will give 50 employees who met whatever the requirements were, they all get that reward. But when it comes to socializing that, and why companies sometimes do that instead, is that there is a certain subset of employees or program participants that don't enjoy the group travel, or they're not comfortable with it, or at least for this particular program, it didn't make sense for a group. It made more sense to reward individuals. But what really we've seen success in is when those are awarded, that it is awarded in a social setting, meaning, have a company meeting and share all the people who were rewarded this individual incentive, and then let them all go off. But a great way to tie them all back together is then, once everyone has taken their trips, do some type of highlight reel, or, here's our employees out enjoying their individual travel. Like, ensure that they were taking pictures, that they were providing content back that can be shared, and essentially say, like, look, wow, the company that I work for, or the company I did this, whatever it was, like the action that it was required for me to take, look what I did and look where I am now. So that it helps, further the support of the company and the engagement with the company. And it is still creating great memories, and memories that they'll remember 10, 20 years down the line, that I was on that trip and it was because of that company that provided it to me.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I appreciate you explaining the difference too of it. It sounds kind of ironic. We're talking about the business of creating memories, but it's individual travel. So they're not necessarily going all on their own alone. They're going just not in a group setting. They're perhaps taking their partner or their family, or however they choose to use that specific award. That's great. That's great. Todd, are there any cultural immersion or localization things that you think are really important expectations for your type of client?
Absolutely. It comes down to, Pali's already said it, but the exclusive access, going to a winery and being able to meet the vintner and hear all about how they're making the wine. If you do a chef's table or a Michelin star restaurant, being able to go into the kitchen, watch what they're doing. Just exclusive access, I think, is more and more important. But it doesn't have to be like overly expensive necessarily. It can be hiking the mountains with a guide that has lived, within the area for 20 years and can go and explain all the little plants that are there, and, having access to knowledge that you wouldn't necessarily gain. Because we do run the risk as a society and as a traveling population at the moment of running into what I call monoculturalism. So, it's going to any beach destination, but you don't know where you're at because the branded hotel is all the same. And am I in Hawaii or am I in Bali? I don't know, because it feels like the same big box with 500 rooms. So it's ensuring that you're providing cultural experiences. That's fine. The group may be in that hotel, but what are you doing to make it memorable, to say you are in Bali and this is what you're experiencing? So yeah, for sure. You've got, as a planner of the experience, ensure that you're bringing in that cultural element.
That's great. I know I went to Portugal at the end of last year and did a simple wine tasting for ports, and they took us on a back end tour that wasn't even on the actual tour, a private tour back to where it was stored in the barrels, how they make it, how they repair the barrels. And it was so simple. But when I think about that trip, that's one of the things that immediately comes to mind, because it was so unique. It was such a unique experience. I love that.
And that's what sticks with you. It's those, the simple little things, but it's just like going by yourself or just going out with your friends. You probably wouldn't have gotten to that level of it. So it's working with us to make those connections and try and get that exclusivity, like Todd mentioned.
For sure. So this is really making me want to pack a suitcase right now, this conversation, but I want to talk about a little bit about the budgets and the business side of travel. that's such a hot topic right now, just, with inflation and a lot of the economics going on. I feel like, if a CFO cut the travel budget tomorrow, and I'll start with you on this one, Polly. CFO cuts the travel budget and says we have to go from this amount to much less. What business outcome are they unintentionally sacrificing, or maybe they cut the business travel out altogether? What are they losing out on from your experience?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. There's a lot. It's a pretty packed question. I think what they're losing out on is really the ability to promote something big, and it's really just the incentive trip itself is one of the most easiest promotable things you can have. So from that standpoint, it's such a great tool for recognition, motivation, to Todd's point, retention. A lot of these programs create emotional connections to your company. Like if you went on if you're hosting and bringing your partners along, your partners like hold you to that, as far as the connection goes, and so you're just strengthening those relationships by the trip itself, as well as leadership. And it can also impact future performance. If someone didn't get to go on the trip this year because they just missed out, they're going to try that much harder if they're so close to getting it, to work for it next year. And if it goes away, then they might lose their desire to even want to perform or be a top performer, and start looking elsewhere. So I really think the true loss there is your ability to create loyalty, driving engagement, like we talked about, and just reinforce those behaviors that drive your business growth.
That's good insight. Anything you want to add to that, Todd?
I'll pass on this question.
Okay.
No, just because our clients sit at such high-end numbers. If you're going to cut the budget, then well, it's a good thing. If you're going to cut your budget with me, then I'll be able to pass you on to other practitioners that can meet your budget.
That's a good thought. There's enough business to go around, right?
Yes.
So, Pali, you're not new to the travel business. Todd, you're not new to it. I'll ask you both the same question. Pali, I'll start with you. For people who may be newer to the industry, what is a rookie mistake for travel event planners and program designers that you've seen and you would just caution people on?
Yeah, I think one thing it's definitely something that we've seen before, and we've felt the hardships of is really when working with partners locally. It's not cutting your DMC budget. I think it's one of the key things is having that relationship with your DMC, and your local hotel partners. Just because what we try and do from an experience standpoint, from a memorable standpoint, they're such a great ally to have as far as being like your feet on the street. They know the ins and outs of where you're going. They can help you gain that exclusiveness that we talked about. If you have an idea, they can help bring it to life, but not only just bring it to life, but making go above and beyond as far as sourcing things locally, making things as authentic as possible, and all that while reducing any risk of uncertainties that you might come across if you're trying to plan it yourself, from another country or somewhere far away. So that would be my advice is at all costs, don't cut your DMC budget, specifically when you're going somewhere abroad or some remote location that really requires someone that knows the local the scene to help bring that to life for your event.
Okay, Todd, any must-have things that you can never cut for any reason at all for a trip?
Yeah, just don't cut your planning time. If you want the best venues, the best access, etc. I tell my clients 9 to 12 months would be ideal. You will get the people who come and they're like, we want to do this in 2 months' time, and it's everything is possible by all means, but the best things sell out for a reason, and so like the availability of the best experience is already being cut because people claimed it well before. So yeah, 9, 12, even 18 months sometimes, depending on the experience that they're looking for, because so much of the really great experiences are very limited in capacity. So yeah, you've got to be the first to the game to be able to secure it. So yeah, don't cut your time.
Two good tips from two experts. I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. I want to get personal for just a minute. I know you both love travel or you wouldn't be in the industry in the first place. Todd, I'll start with you. What is your most memorable personal or group travel, any type of travel experience that you've ever had, and what made it so memorable to you? I'm sure you've been to a ton of awesome places, so I'm excited to hear what you're going to say.
55 countries and counting. Yeah, I think it is going to be personal, but it was in Easter Island. So Easter Island is where the Moai statues are, the really big heads that the entire population over the course of I forget how many years cut every single tree down on the island just to be able to build these massive statues that they worshipped. And um, I happened to be hiking to them at sundown one night, and I made it up to this big row of statues, and the sun had set, the stars were shining. And I know this sounds a bit weird, but as I was standing there looking at them, they started whispering to me, and they said, "Beware, beware." Like, and they were literally talking to me. And I know I'm sounding woo woo or whatever, but like I heard them talking to me. And what I took away from that is that island is a microcosm of the world as a whole. And if we exploit all of our resources, then we too can become extinct. And so, yeah, I just thought it was super fascinating to like have that personal, I'm going to call it spiritual experience, and then how I like translated it into kind of what we're doing in the world today.
I'm blown away. I also have been to Easter Island, and you're the first person I've ever met who's also been there. And we will have to have an offline conversation about some experience I had there too. That was kind of similar.
Okay.
So I'm very intrigued about that. It's a very special place. So fascinating that that is your example. Thank you for sharing that. Pali, what would you say? You may not be able to top that one. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah, I don't think I could top that, but I'd say we've talked with the speaking of Portugal earlier, so that sparked this one. But we were actually able to hold a private event at the Penha Palace in Portugal, which is it's pretty heavily populated with tourists most of the time. But again, like what I mentioned before, working with our DMC, we were able to get it basically, blocked out just for our group. So that was like we were doing private tours of smaller groups going around. We had a private cocktail reception on the roof, which was pretty amazing. There's an indoor dinner, like a gala dinner we hosted. So like there's so many different things we did at this place that was like bringing it all together, and then seeing it come to life. It's just like one of those times where you can take a step back and like, wow, like we did this. Like this is checking all the boxes as far as like the exclusivity, something that you'll never be able to do, just going on your own, and then bringing those like local cultural immersions into it, weaved throughout the night was pretty awesome, and something that we're all proud of here at Bright Spot.
wow.
That's really cool.
That sounds really amazing. I love that. Two great trip experiences. I think overall, I think the trip, what you said, Todd, really resonated with me. That the audience and the trip, you really have to match that. And it sounds obvious, but I think sometimes that part is missed, right? You're used to planning something, and so it sounds like you both really put a lot of effort into having a framework, but not replicating everything the same every time. Having your go-to framework is key. Is there anything before we go today, Todd, I'll start with you, that you might want to highlight as anything exciting going on at Memory Journeys right now, or anything that you just want to tout for your business?
Yes, I would like to. I mean, this year has just really been a big step change for us. So you were talking about the framework, and what we've really identified is our supply partnerships, and the deep roots that we've taken the past 2 years to build all of those partners within our homes, villas, yachts, private islands, etc. And because of all of that work that we've put in the past 2 years, and the company's only 2 years old, is that we have now been able to create a huge step change into now being able to go to market. So, our B2B network, we're pitching to major global airlines now of providing our content, as it were, into their reward programs. We're launching with a major Middle Eastern bank next month, and we're the Ultralux incentive within their points program. So, it's just seeing this, the fruits of our labor, as it were, of like, now that we have the partnerships behind us to fulfill in what we're saying we deliver, now being able to truly go to sell that into market because we're confident in the experiences that we're delivering.
That's amazing. It's an
Yeah, that's
exciting
awesome.
time for sure. Pali, anything you want to talk about for Bright Spot, or anything you're just excited about?
Yeah, I think overall with Brightspot, it's I think it's flexing our creative process here. And to your point, you mentioned trying to go somewhere and not have the same experience that you've had before. That's something that we've been focusing on these past few years. Is just like, how do we go above and beyond what we've done before? And if someone's been, it's their third or their fourth President's Club trip because they're a top performer and they're probably going to always get to go on the trips. How do we just make it a brand new, unique experience every time they go? So they don't feel like it's the same company running the same event, just at a different location. So that's one of the things that we've been focusing on, is just thinking more outside the box, and making things more personalized and creative for all of our attendees.
That's great. So I just want to highlight a couple takeaways I jotted down from you both. So return on investment, it's really return on objective. We're all going to steal that, I think. So I really like that. ROI is not just about the numbers. It's really tough to measure. You have to measure with retention, with engagement. There are many other avenues that you have to explore. And for the social aspect, icebreakers, it sounds like you both are doing different types of icebreakers, sometimes on site, sometimes with an app, sometimes after, where you're sharing trip memories. I think we've got lots of good ideas there for listeners. I didn't know about the mobile app one. I hadn't thought of that for sure. In terms of what not to cut, don't cut out your DMC. And Todd says, don't cut out your planning time. So
Yeah.
I think that those are all great, great tips. So I want to thank you both for your time and your contributions today. This was so fun. And I know I learned a lot. We got some great advice and insight for our listeners today. And I think whether you are a participant who has, you're listening and you've been on an incentive travel trip, whether you're a planner, or maybe you're looking for ways to create memories that will have a lasting impact on your business, and you want to start doing some incentive travel to see how you can really help your employee engagement. I hope you found this helpful no matter where you are in the audience. And I love a good quote, so I'm going to end on a quote. Travel is famously cited as the only thing you can buy that makes you richer. And I couldn't agree with that more. I love that quote. I'm your host, Pam Polino. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please do follow the Motivation Insiders podcast for more. And thank you so much for listening. Thanks, Pali and Todd.
Thank you.